David Rockefeller some understanding about what he was and what he stood for. And by the time I'm finished reading these quotes, and these are not huge quotes, you'll clearly get a sense as to what the man was up to. So this is from his memoirs, page 405. This is what he says. Some even believe we, the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. So he was an unabashed internationalist working endlessly, tirelessly to unseat us from our sovereignty. Here's another quote. A lot of people know this one. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications, whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promise of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. So Mr. Rockefeller, who has been raised in educated private schools and think tanks and institutions and all those wonderful global elite circles, really believes that they are an enlightened group who are here to rule over others, and it doesn't matter. And he's thanking the Post and the Times and Time Magazine because they left him alone. Well, the times are a-changing, and the Washington Post, the New York Times, and Time Magazine are dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs, and they will die too at some point, just like David Rockefeller died. And that is the truth. And Carlos Slim can pump millions and millions and millions of dollars into the New York Times, and it won't change the fact that the New York Times is basically the New York time bomb. And it's going to explode and go off, and it will be over and done with. That was at a Bilderberger meeting in 1991. Speaking of Bilderbergers, David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger were at the first Bilderberger meeting together in 1957. It's funny, I was listening to my new favorite radio show, Battle NOLA Radio. Comes out of WGSO down in New Orleans. It's an AM station, but these guys put their shows up on YouTube, and they're great. The only issue I have with the show is that they have to go to break all the time. So you might get like 5, maybe 10 minutes max of good dialogue, and then they have to go to break, they have to go to break, and they have to go to break. It breaks up the continuity in many ways. And Nathan Lawrenson, who is the host of the show, actually does a really great job of navigating those breaks. But I love listening to these guys because, number one, they're very real, they're super smart, they know what's going on. They look at what's happening in New Orleans as one of these cities that's being kind of infected by the globalist agenda, the Agenda 2030. Walter Isaacson, who's part of the Aspen Institute, has basically moved down into New Orleans and is part of a number of groups and committees to steer New Orleans towards a 2030, Agenda 2030 city status. And Nathan Lawrenson, the guy who is the talk show host, wants to run for mayor. But I love listening to these guys because not only do they get it, but their accent and their timbre and their delivery is very unique. We're talking a little Cajun, little Creole, little patois going on, and it's good listening. You'll learn a lot, and it takes you to kind of a different part of the world. Anyway, they were talking about they had James Perloff on, and James Perloff was dialoguing about the 15th of March, the Ides of March, and a number of other things, Council on Foreign Relations, how Trump has stacked his cabinet with CFR members, so on and so on and so on. And then they talked about Rockefeller. And Nathan Lawrence says, when is this guy going to die? I mean, he's been around forever. And this is about a week ago. Sure enough, he left us, thank God. Of course, there's, these people they're like Hydra. They're like Hydra. The difference is that, again, if we get into the astrological code, he being David Rockefeller, June 10th, the Gemini is more than willing to split, divide, conquer, use that duality that's inherent in Gemini. This is what he also said here. But this present window of opportunity, this is here we go. We're on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. He said that. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. David Rockefeller. Here's another quote from Rockefeller. But this present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built, will not be open for long. Already, there are powerful forces at work that threaten to destroy all of our hopes and efforts to erect an enduring structure of global independence. This is David Rockefeller speaking at the Business Council for the United Nations on September 14th, 1994. So let's go back to, this is 1994. And he's saying, but this present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and independent world order might be built will not be open for long. Already there are powerful forces at work that threaten to destroy all of our hopes and efforts to erect an enduring structure of global interdependence. Now, that was 94. That was pre-internet. And as the internet has become the Rosetta Stone for awakening across many different sectors, many different planks and communities, to have that statement come about in 1994 is actually not only prescient but quite powerful to think about where we were in 1994 without these tools. Without these tools. Here's another one. This is from this is what he said about Mao. This is how he was not deluded because they helped put Mao into power. They helped put Mao into power. They helped him with weapons, money, you name it. They supported Mao, who was horrible. He was a monster. Let me give you a little known fact about Mao. He never bathed. He never bathed. All he did was get massages. He got massages all the time from these Chinese women, his concubine. And when you sat in the presence of Mao, his smell was overwhelming. I mean, it's got to be almost kind of like a psychological tactic, don't you think? You're going to smell like a monster. You have to sit in that. It's just a total mindfuck. Anyway, this is what he says about Mao. Whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, they said this in 1973 in the New York Times. Whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, it has obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high morale and community purpose. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in human history. This is the type of government, this is the type of socio-economic system that Rockefeller was lauding and promoting. in essence, pure fascism. Pure fascism. A redistribution of wealth and a redirecting of the masses so that he could apply human capital at any place, at any time, in accordance to his will. And I'm sure he loved that. I'm sure Rockefeller was dancing around his penthouse apartment at the thought of Mao butchering millions of people who might have had an independent thought. You know what's really interesting about that? If you think about this, and this is what happens, and this could happen here. I'm not fear mongering because I always want to end the show on something positive. But when there are a group of people who are targeted because they have ideas or thoughts that are contrary to the system that they're engaged in, for instance, what was happening in Russia post 1917, or China post the Cultural Revolution, people are targeted. They're targeted because they are potentially dissidents and could create waves against the system. And of course, if you're the system, you don't want those people. You want them out of circulation. Well, that's understandable. I mean, if I was a despot, I'd want the same thing. Get them out of here. It's my show now. I don't agree with it, hardly at all. But I understand it from the despot's point of view. Now, here's what happens with a situation like that. Not only do you take those people out, but you take generations out. You're basically kind of manicuring the mindset of the collective because those people will not reproduce. And whatever genetic code is inside of them that gives them the audacity to think and feel independently is wiped out, never to be seen again through that line. So not only are they taking care of the present, but they're eradicating the future. And the people that are left, for the most part, unless they're just completely quiet and silent and hiding their independence, that's what you get. You get the children of those people who are obedient, sheep-like, fall into the structure and the order, whatever has evolved out of it. So it's an important kind of point to understand. So Rockefeller died on the 29th degree of Pisces, the end of the astrological new year. This is really important. I mean, it's not just any day, because now we have theoretically this potentiality for rebirth and bloom as a symbol to die on the 29th degree of Pisces. This is not, by the way, missed by the esoteric and occult high priests and priestesses of their world. Now, one could say that he made a great sacrifice on the 29th day, or maybe they actually killed him on the 29th day. We don't know. Did his heart just fail, or did they have some kind of ritual? And this is the day. Maybe in their minds, on the 0 day, day 0, which is Aries, 0. And look up day 0. It's a big deal with the Satanists. That this would be their day to have a new figure, a new Rockefeller type come to life. It's a dark vision, perhaps. But the lighter vision is that Rockefeller wanted to supplant our will, our individual will, into a collective will, into the will of the New World Order. When we understand the nature of Aries and 0 degrees Aries, what we're really doing our best to integrate into practice is actually the notion of will, individual will. Aries is the most individual sign, even if it's unconscious individuality, in the zodiac.